Here's a career opportunity. Crew chief on nitro fuel cars. There's no pressure, except making it go quick and fast on all kinds of tracks and all kinds of conditions. Free time, relaxed schedule, low stress, hey, not a problem. Except when you can't make horsepower, then you work day, then night, then repeat. Then there's the money, bags of it, enough to keep you in tax trouble all through retirement. Except when you get paid by the win, and there aren't many. A career as nitro crew chief could be for you, but remember, making horsepower in places like this mountain will drive you crazy. Welcome, everyone, to American Sports Cavalcade coverage of the 16th annual NHRA Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals at Bandimere Speedway in Denver, Colorado. These are the hands of a man who accepts the challenges and the frustrations of being a professional nitro crew chief, Tim Richards. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and Tim has been known to knock this mountain down to size. He took Joe Amato to 4 consecutive championships here in the late 80s and early 90s. Now teamed up with Koleda, who won the race as his own crew chief and driver in 84 and 85. All the aces are in their corner, right? Well, they qualified pretty good, number 9. They beat Michael Brotherton in the first round. They got one little problem, though, and it's right next door. It's called Connie's son, Scott. He ripped the record book apart here. 4.89 seconds in qualifying, number 1. 290 miles an hour at 6,000 feet. Absolutely unbelievable. His crew chief, Dick LaHaye, never won this race as a driver. He wants to win it as a crew chief. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In just a few minutes, the Koledas go head-to-head. Scott is leading the Winston championship chase. He's won the last 2 races in a row. So does Pop and the boys lighten up a little bit, get the kid to the Final Four, ensure that the title stays in a Koleda name? You don't know the man that sits in this car. Connie Koleda didn't come here to lose to anybody, especially not Scott. Here's Dave McClellan with the funny car story.
Steve, let's start our funny car story at the beginning. It was Cruz Pedregon, the man that won it all here 1 year ago, the defending champion at the wheel of the McDonald's Oldsmobile, that had a huge amount of problems in qualifying. It was the Friday night primetime session. The crowd thrilled to the engine explosion and fire and watched as Pedregon battled the car through the finish line and then spun it out in the shutdown area, allowing the NHRA safety safari to catch up and extinguish the flames. Pedregon kept the car off of the guardrails and was able to climb through the roof hatch uninjured.
Car seemed like it was on a pretty good run, and I'm usually pretty good about feeling it lay down, but it didn't lay down. It just blew up. I don't know really what happened, but you know, we had a fire, and the big thing is getting the car back together. I'm fine, and you know, try to get the car in the show tomorrow.
That brings us to today, race day, and the driver of this car, Chuck Etchells. His crew chief, John Medlin, worked long and hard on this car to get it ready for the first round, where he met up with Cruz Pedregon. Cruiser continued to have his problems, and Chuck advanced to round number 2, where he could play the role of a spoiler. It will be Chuck Etchells up against Al Hoffman, who is currently number 2 in Winston championship points. The leader in that Classic Series struggle is the man that is the number 1 qualifier. You know, here on the mountain at Bandimere Speedway, you consider a mid-540 time to be really good. Consider this. John Force qualified with a 5:23. That put him number 1. He has made 5 runs on this mountain, all of them in the 5:20s. Can anybody stop John Force? That's the question that remains to be answered. Now for the story in Pro Stock, here's Bob Fry.
Dave, with all of these Mopar parts lying around and all these fans looking on, it kind of looks like the makings of a swap meet out here. But hey, would you want to swap if you were Scott Jeffrey or Darrell Alderman? Coming into this race, number 1 and number 2 in the points. Coming into eliminations, Darrell Alderman number 1 in qualifying, Scott Jeffrey on number 2. It's their sponsor's race. You couldn't ask for much more, except for maybe a couple of big upsets in the opening round. For one, Warren Johnson in a matchup against his arch rival Bob Glidden. WJ never wants to lose, but especially not to Bob Glidden. In round number 1, the Ford gets the measure of it. Warren, in that protracted slump, out of here in the first round. But it was a little friendlier than you might think when the two rivals got together at the end of the track.
Bob Glidden wishing you good luck in the future, and you're going to need a little.
Well, Bob's gone through the same thing I'm going through right now. It's one of those situations that, you know, you've changed something, you can't put your finger on it, you got a little gremlin in there, it's not running like it's supposed to. We dug ourselves into this hole, we'll have to dig ourselves out.
And then to add insult to injury for the Johnson family, son Kurt, who came in qualified number 5, met up with Mike Thomas, the 12th qualifier in the opening round. Mike Thomas sprung the big upset, and both of the Johnsons were out in the first round of competition. KJ also lost his standing in the points. He was number 4, but he has been passed by Jim Yates. The way the ladder breaks, the only way the two Dodgers could meet here at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals would be if they both advanced to the finals. That's exactly the way the guys from Mopar and the Wayne County Speed Shop had planned it. If things continue to go this way for the Dodgers, the only thing we might swap this year is the Winston Championship, the number 1 from Warren, to this Dodge, or the other. Steve?
All right, thank you, Bob. It's time for race number 1 in round number 2 of Top Fuel competition. And there's a man who has worn the number 1 5 times during his career, Joe Amato. He'll be up against Mike Dunn, who is the defending Mile High Nationals champion from last year. Dave?
Steve, and don't forget, as you told us earlier, this man, Joe Amato, has won here 4 consecutive times in Top Fuel. However, that was then and this is now. Jimmy Brock is currently his crew chief. Joe is right now number 2 in the points chase behind Scott Koleda. And he needs to do well here in the middle of the summer and start this summertime swing of 3 events in a row if he hopes to be the 6th-time Winston champ.
Notice the very aggressive angle on those tall rear wings. In this thin atmosphere, you got to really can it forward, push it down to try to get some downforce in these rear tires. Even the front wings have a little more attack to them.
A lot of the racers are having problems, particularly in the last 300 to 400 feet of the racetrack, and this is one of them. Mike Dunn, driving Darrell Gwynn's La Victoria Salsa car, in round number 1 beat Kenny Bernstein from his number 10 qualifying spot, while Joe Amato qualified 2nd with a great 493, but that was his only good run of qualifying. He topped a troubled Corey McLenathan in round 1. Joe also joined that group of racers having engine problems on every other qualifying effort he made. Again, I can't stress enough how important this race is to Amato if he hopes to become the Winston champion for '94.
Normally, we would say 5,000 horsepower in each lane. At Bandimere, I'd say it's more like about 3,900.
And 50, maybe.
That's
right. If they're lucky.
All right, they're pre-stage. Ooh, Amato's top stage light went out, but still it's Amato away first. And Amato loses the blower belt off of the supercharger. Mike Dunn gets a break. 532, only 255 miles an hour. Not exactly paralyzing performance. On the starting line, Bob Price with Darrell Gwynn.
Darrell, have a big rumor out there. They're going to run every race here at Bandimere.
Well, I hope so. We have pretty good luck here, and it wasn't pretty in the 2nd round with the 532. We're not real sure what happened, but bottom line, we're in the 3rd round, and this is one of our favorite places.
As we look at this race in replay, watch the car in the near lane, the Team Valvoline entry of Amato. He got the advantage by a couple of hundredths of a second off the starting line. The car was accelerating well. The raw fuel coming out of the exhaust pipe on the left-hand side of the engine for Mike Dunn indicates a cylinder that is failing to fire. There you see the blower belt coming off of Amato's car, and Dunn continues on to the finish line for the victory and the advancement to the semifinal round of competition.
As we continue in the far lane, one of the great stories of 1994, kind of the Rocky of Top Fuel, Stevie Foster from San Antonio, Texas. He'll be up against Tommy Johnson Jr., and here's our in-your-face cam.
TJ Jr. has a score to settle with Stevie Foster. It was just 3 weeks ago at Topeka that Stevie beat Tommy in the semifinals. Foster then advanced to the final round, the first ever in his career where he lost to Scott Koleda.
And here, Stevie qualified really well, a 4-second run, 499. Kenny Bernstein, Corey Mack couldn't do that. He beat Pat Austin in round 1. Tommy Johnson Jr. qualified even better yet. The number 3 spot at a 4.94, and he beat Clayton Harris. When Tommy blasts off in just a few seconds, you'll see why that camera is mounted in that location. It is just awesome to watch.
And, of course, TJ has another little thing riding for him. The name on the side of his race car is the same as the title right sponsor of this event, Mopar. And Tommy Johnson Jr. gets set back against the roll cage, then pitched forward when he loses traction. Raw fuel coming out of the pipes. Drop cylinders for Stevie Foster. Only a 520 at 271. He's having problems as well. We'll be coming right back to Denver, Colorado and Bandimere Speedway. We're in round number 2 of Top Fuel racing at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals, and this is the reigning Winston champ, Eddie Hill, at the wheel of the Pennzoil dragster. Has he had problems this year? That's probably best answered by his standing in the Winston points chase. He's not even in the top 10. Inside the roll cage of the Smokin' Joe's racing entry is Jim Head. He does a very short, abbreviated burnout. Now, down at the far end of the racetrack, Steve Evans has gone up with Stevie Foster.
You know, you are doing 3 things right. You're leaving on time, great reactions, you're not dropping cylinders, and you're hooking up. That could win it for you.
It's a team effort, Steve. You know, I mean, back in Topeka, we found some things. Donnie and the guys have been working, and you know the story. I think, good Lord, I'm doing my job. If I don't, I think they're going to beat me up. You're going to see me all swole up.
Nice little 520.
That'll work. Thank you. We'll keep going. We'll see what happens here.
The Donnie he's referring to is Donnie Couch, coming on board as crew chief of the Stevie Foster-driven car. There's an interesting shot over the top of the supercharger and fuel injector. You can just make out Ursie Hill. That's Eddie's wife. She's playing traffic cop right now, backing Eddie into the spot that she wants him on the racetrack. Same being done for Jim Head in the opposite lane.
Jim Head has had a pretty good qualifying effort here. Number 5 at a 497. Beat Don Prudhomme in round number 1, a real setback to the Snakes Championship chances. Eddie Hill also his best qualifying effort of the year, number 4 at a 494, and he beat Shelly Anderson in round number 1. Dave, earlier you mentioned dropped cylinders where the spark plug just can't fire the mixture, and we see all of that moisture coming out of the pipes. Everybody has been fighting that problem here on the mountain. Everybody.
The one that has probably avoided it the best we haven't seen yet, and that is Scott Koleda. Hill, with a 499 in the first round, has been running very well. Probably his best overall showing of the entire season.
Let's see if the big twin magnetos can pick up all the cylinders on Hill's car. Yes, they do. Eddie Hill powers it through. Best of the round so far at 506, 274 miles an hour. Jim Head, well, he did the best he could at a 523, 267, but started dropping those cylinders.
And here's the race we have been waiting for, the number 1 qualifier. You're looking at Scott Koleda. Who's he got to race? None other than his dad, Connie Koleda, coming in as the underdog, as son Scott has been absolutely dominant. A 489. There have been folks who have predicted that would never, ever happen at this altitude. But even more impressive is a speed over 290 miles an hour, and I can tell you, everybody thought nobody would ever be able to run that fast this high. Connie has had a good showing thus far as well, and he is somewhat active in both cars. He provides the money. Steve?
Eddie, a tidy 506, which in the final 4, you'll race somebody named Koleda. You hope it's Connie from a point standpoint.
Yeah, from the points, that'd be neat. Yeah, if we could do that. We'll see whatever happens. Yeah, Connie'd be neat if we could pull it that way. Hope we can get through one more round. Boy, we need the points bad. It's late. We need to make our move.
Could be the day.
We're just about halfway through this 1994 season, and Eddie probably said it better than anybody. We've got to make a move.
Well, you know, this is a battle between crew chiefs, too. Dick LaHaye and, of course, Tim Richards for the Connie Koleda owned and driven car. Let me tell you how ruthless this father-son rivalry is. Before I did that open, Connie came back from Scott's camp, and he was like a little kid, the devil in him, right? And he says, oh, I just went over and told him he was a lousy driver. I really got him fired up. Maybe he'll make a mistake in the starting line.
Well, he made a big mistake in round number 1. He had an absolutely horrendous reaction time, he being son Scott. So it gave Connie a little bit of ammunition to go over and pick on him. Tim Richards, crew chiefing for Connie Koleda, who put him in the number 9 qualifying spot. He beat Mike Brotherton with a 517 in the first round. As we said, Scotty qualified number 1 at a 489 and had a 494 when he beat Bob Vandergrift Jr. in the first round of racing.
Connie wasting no time moving up. Dick LaHaye kind of holding Scott back, saying, easy there, let him go up there and think about it for a while. Of course, both crew chief check is signed by the same guy. But Koleda likes it this way. Moving in slowly, they're in. Connie in first. Scott taking his time, put a little pressure on Dad. Good start by both drivers. Scott Koleda just pummels his old man with a 502 to a losing 510, 283 to 275 miles an hour. Scott Koleda, fist in the air, picks up 200 more valuable Winston points. Let's go to the starting line and Bob.
Well, I tell you what, the beat just keeps on coming.
Well, you know, we was a little concerned about the racetrack and so forth. And the thing's been running 490s, and so we calmed it down a little bit and let them, if they wanted to come to us and try to beat us, that's what had to happen.
The kid's really doing well. You guys starting to think championship?
Yeah, we got to start thinking it now, yes.
Don't see why not.
Agree with you, Bob. I'll tell you, Dick LaHaye knows what it's like to battle through these championship series. He won it all back in 1987 when he was behind the wheel. A slight advantage for Scott Koleda. That, of course, is going to give him bragging rights over the old man. But the performance difference, 0.08 of a second, multiplies out in terms of distance by several feet at the finish line as Scott Koleda advances into the semifinal. Steve?
You got beat. You ran a 5:10. He ran an 0:02.
What can I say? It's a car length behind.
You were over at his trailer, really getting on him about reaction times, trying to get him upset. Your own son.
It's too bad, ain't it?
Doesn't matter. Just another number on the car.
Steve, I can't think of a family that is having more fun together than those. Here's the pairings for round number 3. Eddie Hill against Scott Koleda, and the points leader has the lane choice. Mike Dunn goes against Stevie Foster, and Foster has the right to pick the lane.
The first question out of any winning Koleda is always, who left first?
Who left first?
You did.
I thought so. He came over and tried to rev me up earlier, and I said, you better be careful, Grandpa.
A 5:02. That's nice in the heat.
Yeah, that's good. We'll take it, you know. I mean, it's right in the middle. Actually, it's slow you to the round, isn't it?
Yep.
Good deal.
He keeps track, too.
In the heat of the day, it's over 90 degrees here at Bandimere Speedway near Denver, Colorado. And it's not about ready to lessen. We'll be back in a moment at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals.
Welcome back to Thunder Mountain. A quick word about NHRA Now, presented by Castrol GTX. It's a 24-hour drag racing information line with the latest info on your favorite drivers and events. You just call 1-900-468-NHRA. Under 18, ask your parents. Charges will appear in your phone bill. And here's the voice you'll hear when you call. Dave McClellan.
Steve, thank you much. Here is Smokin' Joe's racing the Candies in a used Mustang, driven by Gordy Bonin against Dean Scusa. The Scusa Motorsports Pontiac Trans Am made it to its first final round appearance earlier this season when it finished runner-up to John Force at the Fram Southern Nationals in Atlanta, Georgia.
Gordy Bonin has 2 national event victories to his credit this year, even though the team wrenched by Leonard Hughes, owned by Paul Candies, had a very sluggish start. The only funny car in the sport with the 94 Mustang body, the new generation pony car. And no one currently active in the sport has any better car control over one of these full-bodied monsters than Gordy Bonin.
Steve, the problems that have beset the top-fuel dragsters multiply themselves in the funny cars because they do not have that tall wing to provide the added downforce. The lack of air, the lack of atmosphere at 5,800 feet of altitude gives Dean Scusa a real handling problem. He qualified 12th at a 568, beat Casey Spurlock in the first round. Gordy, though, qualified number 4 with a fine 530, and he defeated Gary Densham in his first-round competition.
We should point out the rear spoilers on these cars are fixed. You're only allowed so much area according to the NHRA rules, and there's nothing you can do to make it better. Oh, Bonin, using that car control I talked about, but Scusa just never lost traction as Bonin did. Scusa wins it 547 at 263 to Bonin's 565 at only 238.
Here may be a race described as aggressor and passive attitudes. Somewhat passive would be the Scusa description. They took a very conservative approach. While you see the tire smoke coming off of the Candies and Hughes Smokin' Joe's Mustang, that was the aggressor, and it cost him. He almost lost control of the car, and he certainly lost traction, while Scusa went on to win with a 547. Here's Gary Bolger. He is driving the Dale Creasy Pontiac in the near lane. This is Tom Hoover at the wheel of the Pioneer Dodge. He qualified number 2 with the same elapsed time as John Force. Steve?
Dean, nice job flirting with that center line. Got a little bit close there.
Yeah, I did see it. It actually made me a little verklempt, actually, Steve. So I just want to thank Pontiac for supplying us with some good bodies, and Glenn's really got it on today.
The car is stuck. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's, well, not with this altitude deal, and, you know, with this, we put a new wing on it, and Glenn knows what he's doing, so I just trust him with it.
What was that word again?
Verklempt. It's a lot like vermish, but different.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
The word of the day. His crew gives him a word that he has to use in an interview, so he's off the hook now. He's already done it. I have no earthly idea what he was talking about, Steve.
I heard it on Saturday Night Live one time. Gary Bolger qualified number 10 at a 5:62, beat Whit Bazemore in round number 1, having a ball. Tom Hoover, as Dave said, qualified with the same elapsed time as John Force. So why is he number 2? Because Force had a better speed. That is the tiebreaker on those deals. Qualified number 2 at a 5:23, beat Paula Martin in round 1.
There's how to not only get some good luck, but also plug your ears as well. Leah, that's Tom Hoover's daughter, watches as her dad motors on to victory, a 5:66 at 220 miles an hour. A celebrity jump, as she knows her dad, Tom, into the semifinals of Funny Car. Down to the starting line, here's Bob.
566 wasn't all inspiring, but it gets you to the semis.
No, it wasn't inspiring at all, but I tell you what, we've needed a lot of luck lately. We haven't had any drop cylinders off the start line. All we can do is try to correct it and do our best.
Good luck to you in the next round.
Everybody's trying to fire those cylinders. Look at those trick devices. They are spark intensifiers. Makes it spark even harder. Trying to fire the nitro load in Mike Dunn's car. He races Stevie Foster in the semis.
Stevie Foster looks on as crew chief Donnie Couch prepares his top fuel dragster for Final Four action. Welcome back, everyone, to the NHRA Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. I'm Steve Evans along with Dave McClellan. Stevie Foster will be up against Mike Dunn in the next round. But right now it is funny car competition continuing.
And who do we see back behind the Motorola car with the flames on the GTX Chevy Lumina? That is John Force, the dominant racer in funny car today. He is the reigning Winston champ. He is leading in the points chase and has got everybody talking to themselves here. He qualified number 1 at that 5:23, ran 5:25 to beat Jim Blake in the first round. Meantime, Richard Hartman at the wheel of Johnny West Dodge had qualified 8th at a respectable 5:40. He defeated Jim Epler in the first round. The Motorola Dodge will try to contest John Force, but most folks are saying John Force's biggest competitor is himself.
John Force's car does not smoke the tires. Everybody occasionally goes out a little too aggressive or has a clutch failure. It doesn't happen often to Force. You've really got to beat him. He's not going to beat himself, like you said. Richard Hartman, great young driver of the Motorola car. Richard says he's too strong, and he is. Force, one of the few runs out of the 520s, and I think that was calculated, a 5:34 at 282 miles an hour. Hartman just coasts on through. Let's go to Bob down at the starting line with Austin Coyle.
With these conditions, how quick can it go today?
Oh, I imagine we could have ran 28 if we were pushing, but we figured it'd be prudent not to push.
And listen to Austin Coyle become articulate on us all of a sudden. And look what's happening here. The lane choice in the next pair is held by the driver of that Western Auto Slick 50 Dodge, Al Hoffman. He's decided he wants to move over into the lane that John Force just ran the 5:34. Steve?
You know, it's illegal to have a traction control device on one of these cars unless, of course, it's a human being.
Right, that's Austin Coyle. You got that right. But we're excited. We're really pushing for this win on this hill up here. Maybe I push too hard sometimes. I want to win, but this is very important to me and my family and all my sponsors. We're going to kick some butt up here, buddy.
One of the reasons that John is so intense about all of this, he has never won this event in the 16 years of its running here at the mile-high altitude of Bandimere Speedway. Here is the Western Auto car of Al Hoffman. The question now remains, will the lane switch pay off? Remember, it was Richard Hartman that was over there where Chuck Etchells is currently driving that sleek new Avenger-bodied Kendall GT1 car, and Hartman lost traction. John Medlin out pointing the way for Chuck Etchells.
There's a little concern that the Avenger body, which they only have a few runs on, may be so slippery that here in the thin air, it doesn't beg the engine to burn nitro. It doesn't work as a wedge or an airfoil as maybe the old Dodge Daytona body would. That's just theory, but who's to say? Al Hoffman qualified number 3 with crew chief Tommy Anderson at a 5:29. He beat Keith Jackson from the Rocky Mountains in round number 1. Etchells qualified real nicely, number 6 at a 5:34, and he's the one that put out the McDonald's car and Cruz Pedregon in round number 1. Etchells told me before they went to the starting line here, he says, you know, I think I can take Hoffman. He's ahead of me in the points, and he's gone more rounds this year, but I just got a good feeling about it.
Steve, remember, this is the race I talked about at the top of the show, where Chuck Etchells could play the role of the spoiler. Hoffman well ahead of Etchells in the points. In fact, rather close to John Force. Let's ride with Hoffman on this run. Great start. Look at Etchells come by. At the top end of the racetrack, Chuck Etchells drove around him, and John Medlin says, yes. Elapsed time, 5:41, the winning time, losing a 5:50. Down to the starting line. Here's Bob Fry.
Big win, John, big win.
We're really happy with that one. That was a real important win for us. We were worried about the performance of the car down the big end, but I think our new Avenger body pulled it out for us.
Great win. Good luck in the semis.
Thank you.
You always hate to experiment in the middle of the race, but it appears to be paying off for Chuck Etchells. Let's watch. The Kendall car in the near lane was second off the starting line to Hoffman. But Al's problems were not solved with the lane choice as he lost traction as well as Etchells. Then it became a battle of the backpedaling. You see both cars smoking the tires, but it was Etchells slipping ahead and maintaining the lead through the finish line and moving to the semifinals.
Well, that was a case of just one car smoking the tires a little harder than the other one.
Yeah, we stuck with it, but what are you going to do? That's drag racing. Try to pick up the pace in Sonoma a little bit and go breathe some air.
I don't think the lane change had anything to do with it, do you?
No, not really.
Why did you change?
Tommy got nervous. He's seen a couple tires smoke the car. I said, you know, like Koleda run 502 in it, so I thought it was okay. But, you know, you do what you got to do at the time. And Morrison Auto, Slick 50 Dodge will be back at Sonoma.
See you then.
Well, you can't tell that he's a little rattled. A couple of tires smoked the car, but I guess you got to get involved. The semifinals, Hoover against Etchells. Chuck holds the lane choice, and John Force will pick his lane in a rematch of that Atlanta final up against young Dean Scusa. Steve?
That was some old match race driving, buddy. What were you doing inside the car to try to get around him?
I was just trying to, I never saw him. I was just trying to keep it in the groove, get it back over into the groove. I don't know what I was doing. Kendall's going to be mad I didn't bring my hat with me. I'm trying to change my luck, so on to the next round.
Well, Dodge will love you with the new Avenger body. The body, it wants a little different combination, maybe.
I don't know. It's so hard to tell up here, Steve. You know, the altitude's so different. You know, how do you answer that? I mean, all we can do is just try to go one round at a time.
Great driving.
Thanks.
Chuck heads to the semifinals. Al goes to the trailer, and we'll have Pro Stock action next when we return to Bandimere Speedway with our American Sports Cavalcade coverage here on TNN.
We are back at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Now, Warren Johnson may be long gone, but he left some words of wisdom. Quote, "I hate this place. The air's so thin, the birds are walking." And it really does affect the Pro Stock automobiles, which are normally aspirated, i.e. no supercharger of any kind, more than it does the nitro classes, where you can add more fuel or bump the blower up or whatever, Dave McClellan.
Steve, you hit the nail on the head. These guys are pretty much stuck with what they have in the way of power. They breathe through two 4-barrel carburetors into a 500 cubic inch engine. And as big as those Hollies are, if there's no oxygen in the air, there's not much you can do to make more power. These guys have done well, though. Jerry Ekman qualified number 4 with a fine 7:58. That's his highest qualifying position all season. And in round number 1, he raced Larry Morgan in the Castrol Super Clean Oldsmobile. Morgan had qualified 13th. As the two cars left the starting line, Morgan was treated to a sight that very few people have seen this season, being passed by Jerry Ekman in the Pennzoil Pontiac. That took Jerry to round number 2, where his opponent, Mike Thomas, the number 12 qualifier, had already defeated one of the Fable Johnson's son, Kurt.
One thing you can do with these cars is change the ratios in the transmissions, and I'm sure they've done that here, if not the overall rear axle ratio, to make up for the lack of torque and horsepower up the starting line in the first couple of gears. That's Ekman. That's Thomas. Thomas leaves too soon. A red light start. He's out of here. Ekman, with all kinds of control problems, had Thomas taken a green light, he might be going to the Final Four instead of Jerry Ekman. In fact, for sure he would be, Dave.
7:70 was the losing time. That was for Mike Thomas, who had red lighted. Look at the times, 9:62. The winning effort's going to be a little difficult to earn lane choice in the semifinal, but believe it or not, that's where Jerry Ekman is. This is Mark Osborne at the wheel of the Pyroil Oldsmobile. His opponent, Steve Schmidt, wheeling the Dynagear Cutlass. Down at the far end of the racetrack, rare interview with Jerry Ekman. Steve?
It's a good thing that Mike red-lighted. This thing was a rogue off the starting line.
Yeah, it was terrible. Sometimes you need those brakes, and we haven't had any, and we'll take it here, believe me.
Your best effort in quite a while.
Yeah, the car's been running good. We've been real consistent. We made that last-minute lane choice. Maybe it wasn't a good idea, but we won anyway. So, hey, we'll see you in the semis.
We'll be there. We'll be here. We'll be somewhere.
Oh, the wind does remarkable things. Brings a smile to Jerry Ekman's face. He seems very calm and relaxed. Of course, when you get rid of both of the Johnsons in the first round, things do get a little bit relaxed, and you see some different faces headed into the semifinals. Here's a pair, Steve Schmidt out of Indianapolis, Indiana, in round number 2. In his first round effort, he beat Mark Powick from his number 11 qualifying spot. Mark Osborne qualified 3rd with a great 7.56 and beat Ricky Smith in the first round. For Schmidt, this may be kind of running against yourself. He built the engine that is in Mark Osborne's Oldsmobile.
Yeah, but Mark pays a pretty penny to lease that motor for every national event. We've never seen Mark in the final of a true points national event, but he was runner-up to Kurt Johnson at Englishtown this year in the Budweiser Pro Stock Challenge, and that paid enough to rent the motor for a couple of races.
A pair of Oldsmobile Cutlasses, 2,350 pounds, the minimum weight allowed with the driver on board. They're racing on racing pump gasoline, if you will. Highly sophisticated race cars under a stock appearing body skin.
Osborne was asleep at the tree. He's going to need a lot of muscle on the top end. Yes, he does. Osborne just nipped Schmidt. 763 to a 770, but Schmidt was a 600th ahead off of the starting line. That was a lucky break for Mark Osborne that he had that kind of power that he raced from Schmidt.
Steve, as we watch this one again in replay, take a look at the start. You see Steve Schmidt's car respond first. That means he got the advantage. The light is green, so it was a good light for Steve Schmidt in the far lane. But watch, as Steve pointed out, the Osborne-Schmidt horsepower definitely paid off, because as they approached the finish line, Mark Osborne pulled ahead. You want to know what a 4,000th of a second margin of victory looks like? How about that? Steve?
You were pedaling this thing for all it was worth to catch up.
Oh yeah, I was a little late out of the gate there, but this Power car's really running good today.
A 763, it's okay.
Well, we're giving up some in 60 there, but it really ran well. I mean, we're doing something on the big end of the track for sure.
No practice on your tree.
Thanks.
Mark Osborne into the semifinals as Steve Schmidt comes over to offer his congratulations. Here's the next pair. Scott Jeffrey on in the near lane, and this man, Jim Yates, wheeling his Dynamax Pontiac Formula Firebird. And for Yates, he has broken up the quartet of Dodges and Oldsmobiles at the top of the Winston point standings. With Kurt going out in round 1, Yates has taken over the number 4 spot.
Qualifying began here on Friday with 2 sessions, and Scott Jeffrey couldn't get in the 16-car field with either one of them. He finally did on Saturday morning. Jim Yates, I'm frankly a little shocked that this man has not won a national event this year. He's been to 2 final rounds, and Lady Luck just hasn't ridden with him.
The lane choice here going to Scott Jeffrey on by just about 1,000th of a second. When he defeated Joe LeBone in the first round, George Marnell was the victim for Jim Yates. And Yates leaves just a fraction of a second too soon. Scott Jeffrey on, we're on board. The Dodge crosses the finish line. Look at the time, 7:55 at 181 miles an hour. The only car that has been quicker today has been his teammate, Darrell Alderman, at the wheel of the other Dodge, and that's who we're going to see next. He is up against the 10-time Winston champ, Bob Glidden, at the wheel of the Ford Thunderbird. Glidden is the defending champion here at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals, but he's going to have to pull every trick out of the book because Alderman is the top dog, the number 1 qualifier. Steve?
They're running scared, Scott. They're red lighting against you.
Well, I don't know if it's me. It's, the guys from Wayne County, they give me a heck of a race tool here to race with, and we're having fun here today in Denver, in front of Mopar and all the fans we got here.
What kind of an elapsed time would make you smile?
For me to hear? Mid-50, I'd be real happy considering the way my teammates running.
Get happy, 55.
Well, that's pretty good there, Steve. Thank you.
Now the question is for Scott Jeffrey will that hold up for low ET of the round as his teammate Darrell Alderman comes to the starting line. The sky looking kind of nasty, getting dark, particularly down at the far end of the racetrack as our 2 cars come into the staging procedure. Alderman qualified number 1, the only car in the 40s, a 747, beat Butch Abbott in the first round. Meantime, Bob Glidden had qualified number 8 at a 761, and we saw him with Warren Johnson in the first round confrontation. Son Rusty making a final check of the car and walking back behind to watch how the chassis works.
Been a long time since these two met side by side. Let's see if Glidden can match reaction times with the known hole shot bandit Alderman. RPM's up. He does. Leaves right with Alderman. But does he have the power to match the B1 bomber motor from Mopar? No, he does not. A 756. Alderman 100 slower than his teammate Jeffrey on whopping speed for the mountain, 182 miles an hour to a losing 7.71 at 178.
Steve, Bob Glidden did everything he could, but let's watch Darrell Alderman as he made this run. Intently watching. Look at his left leg. Dumps that clutch and immediately shifts the 1-2 lever. Then moves his way down through the 5-speed, pulls the handle for the parachute, and brings the car to a safe stop as he shuts off the engine. That 756 earns him lane choice in the semifinals against Jerry Ekman, while his teammate Scott Jeffreyon ran a 755 low ET of round number 2. That pits him against Mark Osborne at the wheel of the sole remaining Oldsmobile.
That had to be kind of fun, racing Glidden in the Ford, the legend.
Oh, yeah, 10-time world champion, you know. When you beat him, I don't care if he is down on power a little bit. He's a good driver.
And he left right with you.
Oh, yeah, he always leaves on time, so it's a good win for me.
You're 100 slower than Scott, 56.
Well, you know, I think the car sort of fell on its nose a little bit there when I left the starting line that time, so maybe we can get it tuned back up for the next session.
Anybody else would trade, believe me, for this combination.
And maybe still sorting the bugs out of that new Dodge Avenger, but we still have a chance for an all-Dodge final here at Bandimere. Here's the Cinderella Kid, Stevie Foster. He's going up against the defending champ Mike Dunn in Top Fuel. That's coming up next. Welcome back to Denver, Colorado. That is Glenn Micris, the crew chief for Dean Scusa. Going through his mind right now is, what can I do to stop the juggernaut that is John Force? Before we get to the race, let me take just a moment, if I may, to invite you to become a member of a very special organization, the National Hot Rod Association. For just $52 a year, you get 48 issues of National Dragster, a patch, a pin, a rule book, and a whole lot more. And if you order by calling the number on your screen, you'll get a free copy of Diamond P's home video, Drag Racing 93. Make that phone call right now.
Well, here's a guy in the far lane that certainly will be one of the stars of Drag Racing 94 when that's produced, Stevie Foster. Runner-up the first time he ever made a national event final. That was just 3 weeks ago in Topeka. Had only qualified for 2 events previously in a very short Top Fuel career. An off-roader at one time, actually. Mike Dunn has got to be worried about Stevie Dave McClellan. Stevie qualified better, ran quicker in the first round, and has lane choice over the McGuire's La Victoria car.
And what amazes me is the presence that Steve Foster has. In the interviews with you, Steve, down at the far end of the racetrack, his knowledge, his ability to put himself into practically any situation and be the master of it. What I note is when he passes the Diamond P camera, for example, he gives it a big wave.
At Pomona, first time I ever met the guy. He introduced himself. He missed qualifying, but he said, someday we're going to talk a lot down there at the far end. And we have.
In 2 races, you've talked more than you have to some other guys that have been doing it for 10 years. Foster and Dunn. Dunn dropped the cylinder off the starting line, and Stevie Foster finally overpowered the racetrack. After so many great runs, the Foster team may have gotten just a little greedy and hopped it up a bit too much. May not have been pretty, but there's a win in Mike Dunn's column.
I was listening to that Dave McClellan saying it wasn't pretty. It's a W, son, and you're in the finals.
That's the bottom line, you know, and it's 2 years in a row we're in the final with the La Victoria car, and I guess it's just a little magic here for all of us, and all of our executives are here, so hopefully we can pull it off again.
The magic may well be working for Darrell and Mike this day. Dick LaHaye looks on as they fire the engine in the American International Airways entry of Scott Koleda. His competition is Eddie Hill. These were the 2 best cars in the world last year. Hill winning the championship. That number 2 on the wing of Koleda's car indicated he finished second to the 57-year-old Hill. And what we may be seeing here on the starting line is literally the changing of the guard. Hill out of the top 10 in the Winston points chase. Scott Koleda going for 3 wins in a row here at Denver. Quite a story indeed. Steve?
Mike, you felt it starting to self-destruct?
Well, yeah, I mean, I went out there and put some cylinders out and it hit that ball spout out there and started shaking. I grabbed the brake. Probably shouldn't have done that, but I didn't want to take a chance. And, you know, I didn't see him. I saw him out there about 200 feet. You know, he put a wheel on me, and then, you know, the La Victoria car just kind of went around him, so evidently he had some problems, and, you know, took her down the first light. But, you know, we'll take the win any way we can get it. It ain't pretty, but, hey, we're in the final.
Got it. Mike waxing a bit philosophical about that victory as Stevie Foster kind of thinks a little bit about what could have been. Percy Hill now hoping that what we have seen thus far out of the Pennzoil dragster will continue, and that has been some outstanding performances and good driving by 58-year-old Eddie.
This has the potential to be the best race we've seen all day long. With Eddie Hill, the world's fastest driver, Scott Koleda, 308 miles an hour, both qualified near the top of the heap. Scott right on top of it. Could be a beauty. The lanes appear to be absolutely equal. On board the Pennzoil car. Eddie Hill's away. Scott Koleda loses traction. It's going to be all Eddie. Eddie Hill has problems, and Scott comes back by. What happened, Matt?
Well, it looked like Eddie had that one won until something went wrong in the car. That allowed the tire-smoking Scott Koleda to recover and power pass for the win. Bob?
Just exactly like you diagrammed it.
I guess. You know, the biggest problem is we figured the track would be a little bit better, and we got after the motor a little bit and tried to run another par, and the track just won't hold it out there.
Could you see the wind light through the smoke, or how'd you know you won?
Well, I could hear Scott pedaling it, and I seen Eddie wasn't accelerating. I don't know what happened to his car, but something happened.
Kids in the final again. Boy, they're tough.
Let's take a look at this one in replay, and what is incredible is the recovery Scott Koleda has made since that terrible reaction time in the first round. Here he was 0.2 of a second quicker than his first round reaction time, quicker than Eddie Hill, but he went up in smoke. That would have given the race to Eddie had he not had mechanical problems. Watch Scott backpedal, then ease back in the throttle, smoking the tires, but accelerating while Hill is coasting across the finish line. His wounded warrior unable to respond to the throttle, and Scott Koleda heads to the final round for the third race in a row. He meets the defending champ Mike Dunn for the Top Fuel title here at Bandimere Speedway. To the far end of the racetrack, and Steve.
Something in the Koleda makeup says never give up.
Oh, I never give up, you know that. I almost did. I thought, oh, man, he's out there about a good car open on me. And then he disappeared, and I stepped back on it, and it got pretty loose on me, but that's what they put steering wheels in them things for.
That's hard on parts.
Oh, well, we got more. It's only one. I mean, if we've had to put a motor in, it's the first one all weekend.
Always borrow some from Dad.
I doubt it.
The rivalry continues between the Koledas. Back at the starting line, our semifinalists in funny car. That's Tom Hoover. He's ready to go.
It's time for the fuel coupes, the funny cars, the floppers, whatever you want to call them. They always bring maximum excitement to NHRA Championship drag racing. We're back at the Mile High Nationals, and that is Tom Hoover, the Pioneer stereo car. And interesting, he qualified equal to John Force, but he destroyed the motor, put the rods out of it, all 8 of them, and you really wonder if he can make the kind of recovery, well, like he did a year ago here. He used this race as a launch pad to win the following race in Sonoma.
This is Chuck Etchels, and he is using this race to debut and launch that beautiful new Avenger Dodge body on the Kendall car. For Hoover, he may have been able to match John Force's elapsed time in qualifying, but he does not have the depth in the term of spare parts and spare engines. So he has been sparing with his aggressive attitude towards running the race car. In round number 2, previously he ran a 5.66. That gave the lane choice to this man, Chuck Etchels. But in the first round, he had a fine 5.43. So he can run those good numbers, Steve.
If it were not for Mopar sponsoring this event, I doubt you would have seen the Avenger here. They would have waited till Sonoma, the next race at sea level, rather than trying to deal with a slippery new body in thin air. Let's watch him. Connecticut for Etchels. Lots of clutch stuff in the cockpit. But Etchels takes it as Hoover overwhelms the racetrack. A 5.41. That is good, solid performance on the mountain at 265 miles an hour. But the talented crew chief is Bob Fry. Robert? I know you'd like to give that new body all the credit out there, but I'll tell you what, the tuner's got to take some credit here, John. You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. The credit goes to the manufacturers, the parts and components that we use on the car. The car's been performing very consistent all weekend. I think that's what it's going to take to win the race tonight.
be a great feeling if you guys can win this one for the whole team, huh?
Be great. We need it.
We're certainly headed in that direction.
They are into the finals. Who will their opponent be? Will it be Mr. Domination, John Force, or are we talking upset? Will it be the youngster, Dean Scusa? Scusa has had some very creditable elapsed times. A 5:47 in the second round, a 5:40 in the first. But John Force has just obliterated the entire field. The slowest time he has run thus far this weekend came in the previous round, a 5:34. Steve?
For the second time in 3 years, Chuck Etchells goes to the finals on the mountain.
Oh, man, it's great. We're really happy. I mean, this Dodge Avenger's great. It's working for us.
Getting the tire smoke under control a little bit.
Yeah, John's doing a great job. He just keeps chipping away at it. And what did it run?
41.
Well, should have run better than that, considering it didn't smoke the tires, but we'll take it.
Really doesn't have much choice. It's in the record book now. Here is the Force clan. That's the kids looking on as Dad does his thing. Underneath the body, Austin Coyle making a final adjustment to the fuel injection system.
Austin Coyle and Bernie Fitterly have something back at Force's shop that Glenn Micros did that works with Scusa. Which is he at? It's a blower dynamometer. They know exactly what every supercharger is capable of doing, just like a pro stock racer knows what his whole engine is capable of doing coming off of the dyno. It's a one-of-a-kind piece. It cost John Force about 70 grand for them to build it, but boys, it paid some dividends.
And certainly here, where there is very little air to move, the more supercharger boost, the more efficient the blower, better you're going to run. Scusa is giving him everything he can, but nowhere near enough. Look at that. John Force into the finals, 5:34, matching the time he had in the previous round at 281 miles an hour, and that is truly the best indicator of all, the speed that he's been running. Every pass has been over 280 miles an hour.
Watch how quickly the Force car launches without smoking the tires. That is just amazing and has everybody scratching their head. How can he leave that hard and not burn rubber?
At the finish line, Scusa was several car lengths behind. He ran again another creditable time of 5:47, but he is completely out of the picture as John goes on to meet Chuck in the finals. Lane choice, who else? John Force. And he is with a good pal, Steve.
You know, Force, you're no fun anymore. You don't catch on fire, you don't hit the walls, you don't blow over backwards. What's going on here?
Yeah, but it's coming. No, what about a heart attack? That's getting pretty close.
5:34.
I'm going to work out before I come up on this hill. Them young kids they're just doing old Forcey under. But Coyle backed her down a little bit, got a little nervous on the starting line. So he said, do your job. So I don't know what happened. But we're excited, just glad to be here.
So John Force, with a smile on his face, as always, goes into the finals where he'll match up against Chuck Etchells. We got more action coming your way as we return to the mile-high atmosphere at Bandimere Speedway.
We're down to finals in top fuel and funny car here at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Now it's time to do the same thing with the factory hot rods, the pro stock cars. Darrell Alderman versus Jerry Ekman. Alderman, the quicker in qualifying. However, he was not the quicker in the previous round. That honor belongs to his teammate we'll be seeing a little later on, Scott Jeffrey. There's Jerry Ekman, finally, for his fans and for Pennzoil, having a great weekend here on the mountain.
Steve, the only problem is he's running up against Alderman in this round, and he is at least 300 to 400 and sometimes a great deal more behind the performance of the new Dodge Avenger. Zoomy looking bodies and a very sleek race car for this gasoline burner. Darrell Alderman getting more and more comfortable with this car with every pass. He says, all I need is a little more seat time.
They didn't just rest the 3 weeks between Topeka and Denver. They spent 3 days testing run after run after run at Rockingham Dragway in North Carolina, and it's really paid off, both in performance and Alderman being comfortable in the car.
The Pennzoil Pontiac of Jerry Ekman is best showing in many a race. Trying to keep pace with Alderman. And that was a close race until the last few feet when Alderman was able to pull it out. A 765, the slowest run he has had all weekend at 182 miles an hour. Jerry Ekman trailing ever so little at a 773. Well, Jerry definitely did his job. He got a very slight reaction time advantage off the line. Alderman here had his share of handling problems. I think the car must have been spinning the tires in first and second gear. You could see it wiggling around just a little bit. That allowed Ekman to keep pace with him. But it was right down at the very end of the quarter-mile racetrack that Alderman began to pull away, and by just nearly a full car length, he won.
Darrell, you're going to the final round, but the car fell off a full 1/10 of a second.
Yeah, I know it shook real bad on me there when I went into third gear, and I had to come completely off of it and get back in it again. So we'll have to take a little clutch out of it probably this next time.
Best of luck to you.
Thanks.
Well, that's one of the Mopars in the finals. We have an opportunity to have an all-Dodge final round as our next pair coming to the line finds Scott Jeffrey on here in the lane nearest our cameras, Mark Osborne and the sole remaining Oldsmobile Cutlass in the far lane.
Jeffrey on. Oh, something's happened with Jeffrey on's car. The engine has died. It kind of backfired, Dave. There's another Dave. Dave Hutchins comes up. Scott trying to refire it. No luck so far. Osborne, I'm sure, completely unaware of what's going on with Jeffrey on, executes his burnout. And I think the Wayne County Speed Shop team is maybe going to throw in the towel here. Scott is still trying. Dave Hutchins has a very discouraged look in his face, as you can see. It could be electrical. It did definitely bang on the burnout.
He started to do his burnout, Steve. The tire made 4 or 5 revolutions and then came to a very quick halt right after that pop. Meantime, in the far lane, Mark Osborne is staging the car, and it appears that it is over for the Dodge as the Wayne County Speed Shop crew begins to push the Mopar Daytona back into the staging lanes as Scott Jeffrey climbs out of the car and walks away oh so disappointed. He had had quick ET of the round before. Now he is out of competition. It will be an Oldsmobile in the finals, his first ever championship round appearance for Mark Osborne at the wheel of the Pyroil Cutlass. The question is, will he earn lane choice? The answer is no. By 0.02 of a second, that goes to Alderman. Let's find out what happened to Scott. Bob?
Dave, tell us what happened.
Well, I don't know what happened. The thing belched or backfired or did something. I don't know, something happened to the ignition or what it did, and it just wouldn't start again, wouldn't refire.
Now, what's the rule on that? Is he allowed to refire it?
Oh, yeah, he could start it again, yeah, as long as he can fire it under his own power.
So it's too early to tell what it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a tough way to go. Now the Dodgers are down to 1. Kind of evens the field.
That's the pairing as you see Mark Osborne and the smile of Darrell Alderman, with Darrell holding the lane choice by only 0.02 of a second. Steve?
How about it, huh? First ever national event final round, and you matched wheels with the Dodge at 765.
Well, you know, I'm so pleased. I don't know what to say. I really want to thank Pyroil, my crew chief Mike Evers, my wife Kim, Mama Rosa's Pizza for really hanging in here with us.
Love that pizza. Can you run with the Dodge, do you think, in the final round?
If these lanes will stay equal, I don't think we'll out-horse pairing, but we'll just have to get up there and hopefully we'll get another break.
We'll find out when we come back.
As we suspicioned, an engine change being accomplished in Scott Koleda's pit. We saw a bit of fire the previous round. His dad, Connie, over to talk to his crew chief, Dick LaHaye. Scott busy mixing the fuel, which just about every driver does. I'm Steve Evans, along with Dave McClellan and Bob Fry, and we're back for the final rounds of the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. And first up, Mac, it's Pro Stock, and there was an engine change here as well.
Steve, Killer is back. This is the engine that they used to win Memphis. Darrell Alderman drove the Dodge. At that time, it was a Daytona car, and they have an engine that they've named Killer. Well, they've put it back in to race Mark Osborne in the finals here at Denver. And for Alderman, he's got to have some confidence because that is the only national event victory that he has had all season long. For Osborne, sort of a rarefied atmosphere, and I'm not talking about the mile-high altitude either.
Should be interesting to see if he's up to the pressure, and usually you'll notice a guy, if he's going to crack, it'll be right on the starting line. He knows he's up against the 2-time Winston champion. He knows Alderman's a crowd favorite. He knows Alderman's kind of the golden boy, and he's just a soft-spoken gentleman from Virginia who matched almost exactly Alderman's the last time for the previous round.
Just 0.02 of a second, and it would have been Mark Osborne deciding where he wanted to run his race. Terry Adams, the crew chief for Mark Osborne's car, the Pyroil Cutlass. One thing we have been remarkably free of this weekend has been any kind of psychological staging battle.
Yep, been very clean racing. Alderman in first. He always does when he has lane choice. Sport making him sweat a little bit. Attaboy. Oh, they leave right together. They stay together. Has Osborne got a chance here?
Nah. Killer's got horsepower.
751 at 182 miles an hour for the winner. Mike Sullivan congratulating. 759. Osborne gave him a heck of a fight. Let's go to the starting line. Bob Fry. He doesn't want to fight.
It's crew chiefing by committee, and I'll let you guys fight this one out. Good move in the points for Darrell, huh?
Great move for the points for Darrell, for sure. We had a lot of trouble up here, but we got to the end.
Oh, yeah, it looked like it was trouble all weekend long for these guys. Congratulations, Mike Sullivan and Dave Hutchins, as Darrell Alderman wins it with a 7.51. David?
Bob, that 7:51 was the low elapsed time of eliminations. Here's our replay. Neither driver had a great reaction time. I think that little staging battle may have taken its toll. But what is absolutely unique about it, they were almost identical in reaction time, so it doesn't matter what the times themselves were. It was an even start for both drivers. The difference in this race was killer. Look at that. The horsepower prevailed. A car length at the finish line. Alderman the champ.
Darrell, Killer came through.
Yes, Killer did. I don't know what it run, but...
751, I know these things.
Well, it felt like a pretty good pass there.
You had total confidence even though you made an engine change?
Oh, I'll tell you, I didn't have confidence. I had confidence in the car and all, but I didn't think I had the thing won or anything like that until the wind light come on.
And a nice move in the points against your teammate.
Yeah, you know, every round's 200 points, and I'll take it.
Get excited, will you? Dave McClellan?
Don't kid yourself. He's excited inside. He just may not show it too much on the outside. The Pro Stock point standings in the Winston chase. Scott Jeffrey on number 1, 558 points back as Alderman, followed by Warren Johnson, Jim Yates, number 4, and Kurt Johnson bumped down to number 5. The Nitro Printers are back. Austin Coyle trotting back, trying to keep pace with John Force in the Castrol Chevy Lumina. His opponent, the winner here 2 years ago, Chuck Etchels with a Dodge Avenger out of the Kendall GT1 Super Winch sponsorship. The body up, John Medlin under the car.
John Force has never won here at Bandimere. Chuck Etchels won just 2 years ago, and John is a little jealous of that. In his early days as a struggling professional, he could always come through Denver at the old Bandimere Speedway, and if nothing else, get a hot meal if they didn't have a match race available. He loves the family, we all love what they've done to this magnificent racing facility. We tease about the thin air a little bit, but believe me, this is everybody's favorite track.
And they just continue to pour improvement after improvement, and literally pour means lots of concrete going down.
Here we go. This is the final round. Can John Force make it 5 victories this season? Chuck Etchels hasn't won since October of '93. It is no contest. John Force, back in the 20s, 525. Huge speed for up here, 282 miles an hour. Etchels threw in the towel at 266 miles an hour. What am I doing here?
Austin, when I grow up, I want to be you. You're unbelievable.
Well, thanks so much, Bob. Like, things go really well once in a while, and it's a whole team that works hard to do all of that. Let me take this opportunity to say hi to my wife, Lisa. She's home moving into our new house all by herself.
Shows all those big bucks those crew chiefs make. What a great job he did.
Hardly describes the achievement that John Force has had this weekend. Great seems to fall just a little bit short. Here he came back in the final round as Etchels hazing the tires. Force without a whisper of smoke off the back of the car and huge amounts of horsepower. 282 miles an hour. His elapsed time, yet another 520, a 525.
If I know the Force crew, there'll be a celebration near Thunder Mountain tonight.
There's a big celebration up on top of that mountain. My daddy, just like the paper said, up there sitting in heaven with John Bandimere. Bandimere said, when's your dumb kid going to win this race? Pop, we won it. All my sponsors, we did. We are tickled pink.
What are you doing to win all these races? You can tell me. Who could I tell?
I got a part-time job selling Autolite spark plugs so I can pay Coyle. Now, we just work hard. We match race a lot. Castrol, Jolly Rancher, all the people that support us. We love you. It's been a long old road. The Wax Shop, Dorman. What can I say, gang?
He said it all, Dave.
Steve, whatever he pays Austin Coyle, it's worth every penny as Chuck Etchels comes over to offer his congratulations. If anybody is to catch John Force as we start this second half of the season, they better hurry. Force, Hoffman, Spurlock, Etchels, and Pedregon rounds out the top 5. We'll be coming back to Bandimere Speedway. It is time for the finals of Top Fuel Eliminator when we return.
Only 2 more drivers to go mano a mano here at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. That is Scott Koleda and Mike Dunn, the Top Fuel final. Long, long shadows now, Dave McClellan. We should see the nitro flames that everybody loves so much.
The American International Airways car driven by Scott Koleda headed for 3 in a row if he can stop Mike Dunn. Of course, Dunn, with his car owner Darrell Gwynn and all of their friends from La Victoria Salsa on hand to watch them try for 2 wins in a row here at Bandimere Speedway. This could be a closer race than one would imagine because Darrell and crew can pull it out of the hat on occasion.
I haven't seen Dick LaHaye this nervous in a long time. In fact, while we were in commercial, we were watching him eat about 8 packs of Rolaids. That'll calm him down. As you said, though, that engine change for Scott Koleda, you just never know. Theoretically, they're all the same, but I've never believed that. I think every part in drag racing has its own personality.
Well, the burnouts are over. The crews and crew chiefs have done all they can do. The only control factor left at the moment is the good Lord and the 2 drivers inside this pair of race cars.
Oh, what a pretty sight, especially for Scott Koleda. Look at that. Amy a murder to motor to do it. But they have won the Mile High Nationals, their 3rd race in a row, 5:07, 270 miles an hour to a losing 5:45. Mike Dunn was just never really in the hunt.
If we talk about John Force as a juggernaut in Funny Car Eliminator, I have no idea how one would describe Scott Koleda. What he has accomplished on 3 different racetracks under 3 absolutely, totally different racing conditions is incredible. Here, he ran this fine 5:07 after the engine change. And while he may have lost the motor and the lights, who cares at this point? The win is his.
I tell you, to survive your crew in the celebration down here is incredible. What a weekend. You get a boatload of points. You got to punish your old man. That's the hat trick. Wow.
Oh, I tell you, you know, beating him's fun, but he doesn't mind it, I don't think, you know. If we bring the one home at the end of the year, it'll be all right with him.
And Dick LaHaye, what a great job. Your Rolaids bill may be skyrocketing.
Oh, I tell you what, Dick's a magician. I can't say enough about him and the guys, and, you know, I mean, I kidded around this morning with Grandpa. When he's not in the other lane, he's the best team owner out there.
Let's go back to Dave McClellan. Congratulations.
Thanks. Hi, Kathy.
Scotty saying hi to his wife. Well, he has got a substantial lead, about 1,300 points over Joe Amato with 8 races remaining this season. Dad Connie's 3rd, followed by the Snake Don Prudhomme, and Corey Mack rounds out our top 5. For Bob Fry and Steve Evans, we have certainly enjoyed a great weekend of racing here at Bandimere Speedway. I'm Dave McClellan saying so long from Denver.
A promotional consideration has been provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond P Sports.
Hold on to your hat for 70 minutes of helmet-hammering, bone-jarring, heart-stopping motorsports mishaps. It's Diamond P Sports' best-selling video series, and They Walked Away, Volume 3. Stock cars tangle and tumble on the oval high banks. Sprint cars get topsy-turvy and ticklish traffic. Drag racers hustle down the quarter-mile in terrifying infernos. Mud racers, monster trucks, and motorcycles, and awesome displays of man and metal turn to mayhem, and always the driver beats the odds. If you order now, we'll give you a Diamond P Crew hat to hold on to.
2 order and They Walked Away 3 and get the free hat. Call 1-800-257-9191 or send $24.95 check or money order plus $4 shipping and handling to the address on your screen or charge it on your MasterCard, Visa, or Discover card. 1-800-257-9191. The American Sports Cavalcade has been a production of Diamond P Sports and a presentation of TNN Motorsports.